Andrew, it seems like you've settled on the balance of the side over the third ODI and then the last warm-up match. How crucial is that bowling option at 7?
Yeah, we're pretty settled. When you pick a squad of 15 players, you're pretty settled in what options you've got available. The bowling at number 7, can be critical. We've also got Glenn Maxwell and obviously Mitch Marsh coming back into the fold with his bowling. So we feel as though between Marsh and Maxwell, we could potentially get 10 overs out of that. So we'll leave the sort of final team till a couple of days out. So we've got a couple of days to work through that. But the real positive from the last practice game against Pakistan was obviously Mitch Marsh getting that bowling into him, backing up from the Netherlands game. I think Mitchell Stark, his 2 spells were really important to get him some match time. Cameron Green a little bit of time in the middle also, and clearly Glenn Maxwell being able to cope with the demands of the game that he played, significant innings, plus being able to back up and bowl as many overs as he did, and he's pulled up really well. So a few of those moving parts that we had leading in have unfolded positively for us, which is nice. So if you asked me that 2 weeks ago, I would have been a little bit worried, but now, everything seems to have come together nicely.
And 10 overs for Glenn in the third ODI, I think it was 8 the other night. Is he ready for that heavy workload throughout the whole tournament?
Yeah, so far so good. So as I said, that Pakistan game, the way that he pulled up on the back of that was really positive, and we've got some decent gaps in between as well, which is unlike the sort of bilateral series where it's quite condensed with short turnarounds. In a World Cup, you've got a bit more space, a bit more time for recovery. So we feel as though he'll be able to cope with the demands of what the World Cup presents.
Is everyone sort of fit, apart from Travis Head, obviously everyone fit heading into the tournament? We've seen Marcus miss the last 4 and Zampa miss the last 3. Is that just the management of workloads heading into the big tournament? Yeah,
so Zampa, not as big a concern. He's so as you said, like more a sort of workload management. He did pull up sore from the second game in the ODI series, but nothing significant. Marcus Stoinis, a little bit different. He's got a slight hamstring complaint at this stage, so that's why he missed the practice games, and he'll be touch and go for the first game against India. So we've got the main session today, and then we've got another hit out tomorrow. So he'll go through his work there, and we'll see whether he's available for selection game 1. But at the moment, he wasn't fit and available for those practice games.
And on that Stoinis sort of Green dynamic, is it sort of those 2 fighting for the one spot, or can you fit them both into the same side?
No, I think there's a way that we can fit them both into the one side. We've over the last 18 months, we've had a pretty clear way that we want to sort of build 3 ways of playing, and one of those ways is definitely with all the all-rounders and potentially 2 quicks, and you've seen that side in the past 18 months be played. So there is a real possibility that both of those players can be in the same 11, and we haven't ruled that out.
Just on Marcus, when did that hamstring injury occur?
So that happens after, I think it was the Mohali game. So he pulled up a little bit sore from that. And then, further investigation obviously led to that being a slight hamstring. And then he's just rehabbing. As I said, he'll be touch and go for game 1. He hasn't certainly been ruled out of that, but we weren't prepared to risk him in those practice games. So he's been probably slow played a little bit with a view to these next couple of days being really important for him to press for selection for game 1. And we'll see how that unfolds.
You said there are 3 ways you're looking at playing. I think of 2 of them. What are the 3 options?
There's plenty of ways, isn't there? Yeah. You can change up your batting lineup. You can change the order of your the structure of your top order. So as I said, behind the scenes, we're pretty clear on the way that we want to go about it, and that'll be surface dependent and clearly body dependent as well. The World Cup's it's a long campaign. There's no doubt going to be some sore bodies at certain times, and we feel as though with the squad that we've got great flexibility, albeit at the moment, obviously Travis Head sitting and waiting to see where he's at. That'll give us greater scope to shift and manoeuvre the side to the way that we have over the last sort of 18 months.
What's the plan for the reserves for Short and Sanger?
At this stage, they're with us, and then we'll make some plans once we sort of get to that game 1. We've got, as I said, a couple of solid training days ahead of us, and once we gather all the information on the back of those 2 days, then we can make some firm plans for those 2 reserves. And the starting point is we always want them to be playing cricket, where that may be, and it's that's I suppose the positive of a World Cup in season. We're playing some domestic cricket back home, so we're well aware that we want our players playing, and what that looks like in terms of coverage here will be determined.
How's Travis tracking, and how often are you getting updates?
We'll get updates from Trav pretty much every day. He's pretty engaged with the group. Official updates that they'll sort of happen, I think it's around sort of the 11th or 12th of October, where there'll be another checkpoint with how he's travelling with that sort of bone healing, and that'll probably give us a lot more information as to the final timeframes and when he potentially can join the group. But until we get that information, then he'll remain at home training and sort of prepping his body as much as he can back home.
Should we throw a few to Barra there on the phone?
Can you hear us, Brad?
I reckon he's dropped out.
He might have dropped out. Oh, no.
Sorry, I'm just walking in right now, guys, so you can touch it.
Okay.
Yep. Fine.
Killy 4, mate.
Well, we can wait for you.
No, we'll keep going.
No, I'm saying for his questions.
Oh,
Marnus Labuschagne's been doing quite a bit of bowling in the nets and in the matches, the last couple of practice matches.
Indian traffic, you see. Can't stand this country.
As the sort of third spinner, I guess, in the squad, are you expecting him to get overs during the World Cup at some stage?
Yeah, I think so. I think there'll be an opportunity where he may bowl. As I said earlier, depending on surface and conditions, there was a investment in him in that practice game, and that was something that we wanted to see. Is he a 10-over bowler? There's no doubt we probably answered that in some ways, but can he give us a chop out at certain times with 1 to 2 overs to mix and match a little bit through the middle overs? I think that's a real possibility, and we've seen him have impact before with the ball in different formats as well. So we feel as though he can do a role for us. It's just about how we place him and where and when and what that looks like.
And how much of the other games are you going to be watching? Is it religious for you, or is it just the highlights?
I think I suppose we want to see what the surfaces are doing. There's potentially some dew factor. Is that real at this time of the year? A lot of our cricket isn't at this time of the year as an Australian touring team, so the conditions are a little bit different. It's the front end of the season. We're really interested to see what the surfaces are doing, how our opponents are structuring up. So I think the information becomes a little bit more real the closer you get to playing that opponent. But there's no doubt there'll be eyes on the opening game. I think it's exciting. The New Zealand versus England World Cup replay from 2019. I think that'll encapsulate most cricket fans, including us.
Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Barrett. Welcome.
Thank you. Just a word on Indian traffic. No, I'm kidding. So you spoke about the different conditions, but how crucial is it the fact that so many of your players are used to the other aspect of playing these kind of tournaments in India, which is like travel, play, and travel from one end of the country to the other and acclimatize to everything, which is not just the pitch. So how important is that going into a big tournament like this?
I think any experience in the conditions and the environment that presents is critical, and as you said, within our playing squad there's not too many that haven't been here for extended periods of time, so I think that's an advantage. But I think every nation has that, so I don't think it's a point of difference, but it's definitely an advantage for our boys to know exactly what they're coming up against and how it looks for them, the surfaces. But the key thing is managing the moments. Every moment within a World Cup is different. No 2 World Cups are the same, no 2 Indian trips are the same, so how we manage those moments, connect and communicate out on the field, I think that's your point of difference. You could probably lay claim to most teams being a chance to get through to that final 4, and that's your first priority, is to navigate through the rounds, get into the final 4. So the team that can hold their nerve, manage those key moments, and communicate and connect as to what's happening in front of them. You don't want to be that team that afterwards says, oh, we should have done this, we should have done that. That has to happen in real time in tournament play, and it's so different to series play. Series play, you get the opportunity to catch up over 5 games potentially. These are one-off games and your opponent shifts quickly in front of you. So whilst you recognise the game that's happened before, it probably doesn't have much relevance when you move on to a new opponent 4 or 5 days later. So that's going to be the art of navigating through this tournament.
But in an ODI World Cup as compared to a T20 World Cup, Andrew, can you get into it with, say, one style of play where you say that, you know what, the first 10 overs, regardless of who we're playing or where we're playing, we want to score at 8, 9 and over? Or do you actually have to adapt a lot more in this format because of just how long it is as well?
Yeah, I don't think you put any sort of KPIs on your team within the first 10 overs. You don't sit there and say, across the tournament, we're going to be 80 or 90 runs at the end of 10 overs. It'll be surface dependent, opponent dependent. And that's about assessing what's in front of you at that point in time. There might be some tricky wickets early season in India. There might be, could be a 2 for 40 power play, and you might have to back end an innings, or a wicket might start off really well and it might slow up towards the end. So you've got to make sure that you identify that and potentially get a lot of your runs in the first 25 overs, which you saw at Rajkot in the third ODI, where the conditions really slowed down and become difficult at the back end. So being able to identify that in the moment is really critical. And as I said, managing those moments and communicating throughout is I think, going to be the point of difference for a lot of those top teams.
Just on Manas, the batter, I mean, has he kind of made himself undroppable? Just the way he's come back into one-day cricket. There's always that criticism about him in that sense in this format that he couldn't match up with the tempo always, but he's like proven it like pretty much in every outing so far.
Yeah, it's been a really good return after being dropped and not included in that South African squad. We were pretty clear on the way that we felt Man needed to play to fit into the team. He went away and worked on that. I think he may have elaborated on that several days ago, where he's gone away, he's had to think about it, he's come back, and he's come back a different player. There's no doubt about that. And even we saw in the practice game against Pakistan, the intent early, the scoring options, his innings are starting with great intent, and we love seeing that. And we always knew he was capable of that, but over an extended period of time prior to his dropping, he wasn't doing that. He was getting that information, and as I said, full credit to him. He's gone away and worked on his game, and it's a great story. And like, if you're looking for whether he's a certain starter, then if he's not in your team, then I don't know who else you're going to put in there. So I think he's pretty much a lock in that top four, and how we structure up is probably the only sort of final question that we need to answer.
Is Josh Inglis clearly still the backup to Alex Carey, or is there a discussion to be had there around who gets the gloves? I suppose at some stage during the tournament.
I think you saw our intentions are clear with Alex taking the gloves in the final practice game against Pakistan. There's no doubt Josh is playing an up-tempo game, the laps and reverse laps. He's always been an option for us, and not only in that keeping space, but in the batting space as well. So we feel as though he may have a role somewhere in the tournament as a bat only, and if something were to happen to Alex, then we've got a capable backup who's now, I think he's played 9-10 one-day international, so it's great that he's not coming in raw into this environment. He's had some experience. He's obviously taken the lead role in the T20 series in South Africa as well and performed well. So we've been impressed with what he's offered. But Alex Carey's, over a period of time, has been ultra impressive.
Andrew, Rule Dravid made some interesting comments about the going to 4 fielders out in that middle block of overs and the impact it's had on part-timers in ODIs. Have you guys found that, and is that why there's been a focus to build this structure around the all-rounders as well over the last few years?
I think the 4 men out is a challenge. 4 fielders out is a challenge for anyone. I think with the way that batters play these days, they've got options 360 degrees. You always feel as though you've got one part of the ground where you're exposed, and it's a difficult period, and it's also difficult to take wickets through that phase of 11 to 40. So I think that our great challenge is how we create wicket-taking opportunities through that, build pressure, and not let the scoreboard sort of release through that period. So. I think it's a tricky period for any bowling unit to be able to navigate through. But equally on the batting side, it's probably that period where you can consolidate and build and really set up your back end. So I think the challenge for us is to get wickets in that period, but also the challenge for us with our middle order, and that's been probably well highlighted. We haven't functioned as well as what we need to in the middle order. That's a really critical period for us to get that foundation to be able to then really attack those back 10 to 15 overs where scores can start to blow out significantly beyond 300, and you've seen some scores around 350, 360 plus already going around. So that's going to be our challenge.
Andrew, you've seen a lot of David Warner in your time, but just his power hitting, the 6 hitting, especially in the last few weeks in South Africa, there seemed to be a period in between of the last few years where that seemed to have not gone away, but kind of started to fade away. How do you look at the fact that it's coming back in the sense, especially the cross-batted shots where he's really hitting or clearing the ropes by quite a distance now? Obviously it's a positive, but have you seen that kind of come back in the last 2 weeks?
I don't think it ever left. So, there may have been innings where he struggled, but his capabilities have never left him. And what we're seeing at the moment is a guy that's really engaged around the challenge of winning a World Cup. And there's no doubt the end is nearer than the start for David Warner. This will be his last World Cup, and potentially a few others as well. So it's a great opportunity for him to go out and put his exclamation mark on a sensational white ball. Well, one day career for Australia. So but I don't think it's ever left him. So I think that would be remiss of me to say that he was lacking that, and that's been a shift. It's never been a shift. It's always been there, and really impressed with the way that him and Mitch Marsh have gone about that partnership. That's changed. So it's been a late moving piece there with obviously Travis Head going out, but the way that Mitch and David have been able to connect in the last couple of games, I think it's a real positive for us. And Steve Smith's record at number 3 is second to none.
And just finally from me, Andrew, Adam Zampa's numbers in ODI cricket have been tremendous in the last few years. But just to be that one lead spinner, Glenn Maxwell is a specialist as well, but just to be that one lead spinner over 9 games, can you talk about the challenge and the pressure that comes with that?
I think you sort of answered your own question there. We don't see Glenn Maxwell as a part-time spinner. We see him as a lead spinner as well. So we feel as though we've got a very capable right arm off spinner in Glenn Maxwell to complement Adam Zampa, but his record over a period of time is stacking up with some of the best white ball players that we've seen. He's really important to us. And if anything were to happen to him, then we've got to consider what our options would look like. And we've got Tanveer Sangha in the travelling reserve, so we feel as though we've got coverage if something were to move there. But touch wood, he gets a clear run at it, and I think 9 games plus finals for Adam Zampa is it's not a stretch by any imagination. I think he'll be able to deal with that. And as I said earlier, when I think whatever motor transport you were getting here, I talked about the gaps in between games. I think it gives our players the opportunity to rest, recover, and then go again. So we feel as though that's advantageous in a World Cup as opposed to bilateral series.